North Carolina. That's that we.
Oh, North Carolina. Well, actually, I didn't mention that we would talk about this to anybody. Can we talk about that for a bit? Because shit's still going on in North Carolina.
It's almost just as bad as it was when I left, man. I mean, the problem is the Biden regime has just dug their heels in. They are not going to help these people, and they've made that very, very clear. I mean, they've been lying about any support that they've given from the start. I had a mayor of one of the towns out there actually text me and be like, Nick, you know, they just took credit. Joe Biden just tweeted and took credit for the Starlink that you set up at our community center and firehouse out here. And sure enough, I look at it in the Joe Biden official Twitter account has a picture of my Starlink and him claiming that his people, that his FEMA set it up. I mean, it's so they're not telling the truth about anything out there. Any relief aid that they're telling you that they're giving, they're either lying about it and it doesn't exist, or they're taking credit for private organizations doing the work. And these people are now staying in tents. It's in the mountains. It's cold. It's snowing, several times a week at this point. I mean, this is an incredibly dangerous situation. Luckily, J.D. Vance went out there a few days ago and reassured these people that he's actually going to do something when he gets into office. It's just, the 40 days or 41 days that it's going to be until Trump and Vance take office. That's an eternity for these people that have to live through the winter in the mountains of North Carolina with no heat, no electricity, and no help from FEMA.
Okay, there were a number of rumors going around, and then there were a number of things that were subsequently confirmed fact. We'll start with the easy stuff. We all know it's the case now that FEMA was diverting FEMA funds to illegals. They declared it a federal emergency in certain cities and allocated funds that were under the umbrella of FEMA, whatever subsidiary you want to subcategorize them into, to illegal immigrants. Period. Full stop. No more questions about that. Correct?
Right. Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. And they lied about that. They lied about the fact that this money wasn't going to be illegal immigrants. And saying, but then at the same time, we saw it's very easy to look this stuff up. They can say anything they want to, but this is public record. I mean, it's very easy to make a Google search and find out that that FEMA is redirecting money to illegals, and then saying, oh well, we don't have enough money for hurricane season. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. So I mean, that is the definition of America last.
All right, that was one rumor confirmed true. The other rumor was that FEMA was actually confiscating or appropriating donated materials for the purposes of redistributing it themselves or for security safety?
Well, I had a personal run-in with FEMA, FEMA and the Red Cross, actually, because look, the Red Cross is the ones that are typically, how NGOs work, Viva. You've covered this stuff a lot, especially, talking about the U.S. southern border and stuff. You know that the U.S. government uses NGOs to kind of shield themselves. I'm emotional, clearly. They use the Red Cross to shield themselves from any sort of accountability and anybody calling them out. And so they were having the Red Cross go in there. And we, at one point, I had been talking when I had first got there to Western North Carolina. I was on the ground the next day after the hurricane. We drove straight up there from Florida. And one of the shelters that I reconnected with a Starlink, they told me straight up they don't have enough food. The federal government and Red Cross has not given them enough food to feed these people that just lost all their homes, and they don't have anything, and the stores aren't open. And so we were able to, regardless of the fact that the roads were supposedly closed, we found our way around. We went way out and had $1,000 worth of pizzas that we rushed back in with a police escort to feed these people in Western North Carolina that otherwise would not have been fed. So, and they tried to block us from doing so. They said it was not FEMA approved food and that they were going to have to throw it away.
Stop. FEMA approved food.
Yep.
What in the ever-loving hell does that mean?
That's an MRE, like what they eat in the military. That's what they want to feed people. And one of the reasons that the Red Cross is totally okay with enforcing this on behalf of FEMA is because the Red Cross gets paid by the government based on how many people they feed, not how many people I feed. So because they're charging the federal government like $30 for these crappy little MREs that I wouldn't give to my dog. And so, I mean, there's a hell of a lot of profit involved with it. For the Red Cross, and so there's a lot of money being passed back and forth under the table as well, and so people at FEMA are making a lot of money off of this too. It's
I'll steelman it just for the sake. I presume the excuse is, well, we don't want people getting sick because the food might be tainted and we can't have people getting sick when they're living in temporary housing. And so we've got to make sure it's all sterile, disgusting, I don't know, dehydrated shit. Is there any logic behind the other than corruption? Like, what's the purported excuse? It has to be safety.
So apparently you were allowed to order carry out from Domino's during COVID, and that was safe. But apparently ordering Domino's to a shelter is not so safe anymore because it's a disaster zone. I don't know what that. I mean, it was literally hand delivered by us with it, like straight from Domino's in the sealed boxes with the stickers on them, that shows that they weren't opened, using a police escort to get it back in. And so, I mean, if the state troopers and us are all colluding together to poison the food for these helpless victims, I mean, they don't want the crap that FEMA and the Red Cross are giving them. It's a ridiculous thing to say. I mean, it's almost like I would rather eat prison food than eat the crap that FEMA was giving these people. I mean, it's wild.
It is the case that they're not only is FEMA not doing anything, they're interfering with those who are trying to do something. I mean, there's no simpler way of putting it.
Yes, they actually tried to confiscate some of our Starlink systems as well. Because
on what basis? What do they say?
Because they said that if we did not allow them to use it for themselves, and they said, well, we're not going to let everybody else use it because it slows it down too much, which is just not true.
That's bullshit.
It's bullshit, total bullshit. I mean, we were having times where we were running 150 people, even when on the Starlink minis, because when I first went there, that's what I brought. I brought my personal Starlink mini, which is what I use. I put it in the dashboard of the car, so when I'm driving through areas that doesn't have any cell signal, I use that for myself. We had 150 people connected to that at a hotel. And we were able to, and people were running, they're doing FaceTimes with their loved ones. They're running Netflix. I had one guy that was burning through the data playing Fortnite on it. And it's still, nobody had any problems at all. I mean, it was flawless. And so their argument that it's slowing them down is absolute bullcrap.
First of all, I might have to get Starlink because it might actually be better than I don't know if we're on AT&T, I think. So how does it's one unit and then you can have multiple people connecting to one mobile unit if they're within a certain vicinity?
Yeah. You can actually, so the bigger ones, which are the ones that I ended up buying down there and we had to have them shipped in by plane. It was like we had a private plane come in hauling 40 of these things on the plane because we were buying them from other regions and then having to bring them in because you couldn't get them anywhere in the area. And those were basically, you have the dish, and I was climbing up on the top of like fire stations, setting up the dish on the top, and then running a router down like an access point. So you can put the satellite 200 feet away, or from the router, and so you can have it right next to you, and it's lightning quick. You can even plug directly into it. I mean, it's a hell of a system, and I mean, it saved a lot of lives out there. I'm telling you.
Not to plug you to Elon. Had you been in touch with Elon directly, or does he know? Did he recognize what you have been doing?
I actually met Elon briefly after this entire situation in Butler, Pennsylvania, and introduced myself as the Starlink guy in Western North Carolina. So he was like, "Oh, that's awesome! It's great to meet you." And he put me in contact with the chief operating officer at SpaceX, and she was directly helping me coordinate the efforts on the ground.
It's amazing.
Overnighting things to me. They got to the point where they were, because we keep needing more and more and more, because we were taking requests from people and we were doling them out through we had a massive logistics system, like dropping them off to people that have helicopters, so they can helicopter them into areas that weren't accessible by car. And SpaceX was actually like hiring drivers to put them in the back of their truck and drive it straight down from cities that were 800 miles away to make sure that we could get them overnight.
I'm going to bring this up because it's absolutely true. This guy is an inspiration, Nick. It's amazing. I mean, the work you did in Lahaina, the work you did on East Palestine, and the work you did in North Carolina. It's amazing because people have forgotten, just because memory is short, news cycles fast. People are still living out of temporary shelters because their houses are gone. There's nowhere to go back to.
Yeah, I sincerely appreciate that comment, by the way. I think it was by Jack. I don't know, but I saw it briefly on the top of the screen. But
yeah,
But yeah, it's
Who was it,
definitely.
Jack?
Thank you for that. But the
Yes, Jack Spring.
Jack Spring out in Lahaina, I was there several months ago again, and I've gone back there probably 4 times since the fire last time, because I go there, and actually I raced out there last time to try to. They gave me 12 hours notice that they were doing a congressional hearing in Lahaina. And they told me that they were going to work with me on that and let me know when it was going to be. They were going to give me ample notice so that I could help coordinate people and bring them in there, like the public. And then they all of a sudden, they're like, "Oh yeah, okay." By the way, I was in Washington D.C. at the time, and they said, "Oh yeah, it's tomorrow morning, the hearing that we're having out there in Lahaina." And so I jumped on the next flight out to Lahaina, out to Maui. And that's a hell of a flight from here.
Mhm.
It's a really long flight. I missed it by 10 minutes. But I went out there to confront them at that meeting, because it was all like, you had the like Mazie Hirono, the world's stupidest senator.
Sit up and shut down. Sit up and shut down. Shut up and sit down, Hirono.
Right. Yeah. And so I wanted to confront her, because everybody's going there like, oh my God, everybody's doing such a great job. You had these congressmen from DC that have never, really, they were just kind of out there vacationing. They really have no idea what's going on. They're taking testimony from the mayor and stuff and be like, oh, everybody's doing such a great job. So nothing was solved with this committee hearing at all. It was all for show. And honestly, they just wanted a taxpayer funded vacation out of it. And that they got.
It is celebrating their microscopic W's while ignoring their monumental L's. I mean, it's just like, it's a circle jerk, patting each other on the back. We're doing such a great job. You got like what's her face? Everyone's forgotten her name now. Kamala Harris standing in front of that demolished house saying, "Oh yeah, everybody's getting $750." I mean, it's an insult, but they celebrate their insults as though they're massive successes.
I know, and it's not going to change anytime soon, because nobody holds them accountable for it. It's almost like the people of Lahaina they've about given up. Help is not on the way for the people of Lahaina until we can get the Trump administration to do something about it, which I'm very hopeful for. I've had those conversations, but the idea of they're slow walking this entire relief effort out there, knowing that people cannot afford to stay there. So, and they can't afford the mortgage, and then go and have to pay for a hotel somewhere else like they're having to pay the mortgage or on this property that's burnt down, and the insurance companies are denying their claims, and they're trying to run out the clock because people are running out of money. The people that had money are running out of money. And so they have to leave the island. They have no choice. That's their goal. That's how they're going forward with this land grab. Is the amount of people that have moved back to the mainland is crazy. The suicide rate is through the roof. Nobody has work.
The suicide rate was high before this particular tragedy. That, I mean, out there in Hawaii, it's idyllic, but alcoholism and suicide are rampant. I mean, most people don't know that.
Yeah, and absolutely. And this just exacerbated that. And of course, they don't want to talk about those numbers.
Now, but the question, there was a discussion about what is it called, federalizing, but the feds coming in and grabbing the land because it's a disaster zone. There were similar, let's say, rumors, questions about whether or not that was going to happen in North Carolina because of proximity to lithium mines. Had you heard anything about that, or any legitimacy to those fears of the feds coming in and eminent domain, reclaiming the land?
Well, they are definitely planning some sorts of eminent domain out there. They've already said that they are not going to allow people to rebuild in certain areas, which would effectively if you have the government refusing to allow people to rebuild in an area, even if it's not technically eminent domain, you're still forcing them to give up that property because it's not worth anything anymore if you can't build anything on it to those people, right? So you end up selling it to the to either the mining companies or the federal government, which then gives it to the mining companies. And so that seems to be a backdoor way that they can make that happen. And it's another situation similar to what happened on Lahaina, where you can choke these people out. It's very, very easy to choke these people out because they were poor to begin with. They don't have any money. They don't have any money to fight this either. They pretty much have to do what they're told to do or leave. They don't have any other option. They can't sue unless somebody's going to take it pro bono, but
when was the last time you were up in North Carolina?
Last month.
Okay.
So last month, and we'll be there again closer to Christmas time. Still working with people on the ground out there that are delivering RVs coming from across the country. I have a buddy of mine. His name is Chris Hall. He's a storm chaser. He's the one that actually, me and him were together. We went out there the first time. We were in Florida chasing Helene, and then I was like, okay, we're going to go to North Carolina because, look, this is the thing that I've realized. I've only been doing this for a year and a half. I started in East Palestine, Ohio. You tell me that a town is closed or the roads are closed and something. I mean, as soon as they told me the roads were closed in North Carolina and there was no way into Western North Carolina because all the roads are washed out, I'm like, okay, this stinks. This smells really bad. And so, of course, we went straight up there, and I was like, we are going to get in, and we did. We got in. So that was a lie. Yeah. The roads weren't all washed out.
I was told two things because I was like, oh, I got a nice, I got a four-wheeler. I could do some serious off-roading with it. I could get through potholes. And people tell me, A, the roads are literally washed out, and B, don't go unless you're well armed, because there might be security issues. Have you had any run-ins? Like, have there been any pirate type behavior or looting type behavior, or have people been very civil and accommodating?
There were some looting situations where there was a Walmart that was looted. That was in Asheville, in the really deep blue part of Western North Carolina, the only deep blue part of Western North Carolina. And then, you had small scale stuff every once in a while. I mean, you heard just small stories, okay. But nothing on a large scale where, people out there were honestly, I've never seen anything like it, like just helping each other, regardless of how affected they were personally. They were still making sure their neighbors were okay, still saving other people. That was the focus. I mean, there were a lot of these towns where, hell, if you were looting, you didn't really have anywhere to put the stuff. So you couldn't get out of some of the towns, so there wasn't a ton of that going on a large scale.
What is I'm trying to find this as we talk, but what's the death toll as it currently stands? Because we were told that, they say it's I say hundreds, roughly. And then people were talking like in thousands. Do you know what the latest stats are on that?
I don't have the exact numbers on that, but after Lahaina and Maui, I don't even pay attention to those numbers at this point because I don't believe them, quite frankly.
I'm looking here. The last number, it's unbelievable. Death toll tops 100. This is October, and then in Fox News, it looks like November. They're saying 103. I was hearing that it's thousands ish from people who were on the ground, said they saw bodies that were not being picked up, that bodies that were not even being recovered, and that they were basically being tagged or identified and then bulldozed into. I mean, I don't know if any of that is true, and I don't know if you have any knowledge of that.
I mean, I've heard a lot of those stories, but I do know that there are a lot of people that aren't necessarily accounted for either, which is a number that they don't publish. They don't tell you who is not accounted for the most part. That was the same problem out on Maui, and then the death toll. In both of these situations, weirdly, these are the only two disasters that I've seen where the death toll has dropped by like 30%. They'll confirm deaths and then all of a sudden be like, nah, never mind. Like the Lahaina death toll was 135 or something, and then it dropped to 99. Like, how do you confirm deaths and then start subtracting back by 30%? I mean, that seems a little wild to me. And so I don't believe any of these numbers. I really don't, because if most of your town was washed away and these houses were washed away, and I mean, looking at this stuff on the ground, you're like, there's no way anybody could survive some of this stuff that happened out there, and they had nowhere to run to. But these towns are so isolated now that nobody knows where anybody else is for the most part. That's the issue that we're going to have. I think that death toll. It might stick to where it is, but I think that missing number is far, far higher than anybody is talking about. I mean, how do you confirm somebody dead if you don't recover the body?
Well, not just that. That, and also, how many weeks out are we now that unaccounted for is not? They haven't been disconnected from the internet for that long. If they're still alive and unaccounted for, I mean, that's wild.
But I mean, we're talking about massive amounts of water, millions and billions and billions and billions. Again, I have no idea how much water, but all these rivers, flowing off the mountains, right? So that's why these streams and stuff. And I mean, they washed. Some bodies were found, over 100 miles away. So, and those are just the ones that were recovered. I mean, how much further did some other bodies go, and how many of our, got caught up somewhere in the middle of nowhere and nobody has happened to find the body? That's another thing. I mean, they're never going to be able to account for all these people.
Well, that's not optimistic. And not that, but I mean, like, what's going on there is it's an absolute freaking outrage, and it sort of got drowned in the election cycle once once that sort of took over, and now the election, and people have forgotten and not appreciating that people are still living in temporary, like, the situation is dying.
Temporary housing, tents that private organizations have donated. FEMA, I think they've delivered a total of 8 to 10 trailers, maybe 8 to 10. And I don't even know if I believe that number, because FEMA lies about everything else. So